sand. Only specialists call this desert home. Its unexpected neighbor is an ice-cold ocean. And the narrow strip where they interact offers a chance to those that are tough enough to take it. This borderland is Namib, Africa's burning shore. Stretching 1,900 kilometers along the west coast of Africa, the Namib Desert is the oldest in the world. It has been... This is one of the driest places on Earth. But there is life here, unique creatures adapted to cope in conditions that few could survive. The wind that shapes and drives the dunes blows in from the south across the Atlantic and the icy waters that chill its shores. The seas off the Namib coast are very rich and teem with tiny plants and animals, food for fish, and the fish are food for others too. Why is the water so rich in life when the desert is so poor? The answer is the wind. As the wind blows surface waters northward, cold water from the deep surges up to take its place. With it come nutrients from the seabed, the fuel for ocean life. The streaming sea along the shore forms the Benguela Current. Because it's so cold, it tempers the climate of Namib. And because its sea life is so prolific, it attracts birds. They flock here by the million. Three-quarters of southern Africa's flamingos feed along these shores. Flamingos filter their food from the salty water, sifting tiny plants and crustaceans from the incoming tide. The pelicans, cormorants, and other seabirds live on fish. Cape cormorants are the most numerous birds on the coast. At the start of the breeding season, they gather up any scraps they can find to cobble together simple nests. "100,000 nest here. Each pair will lay 3 to 5 eggs. They may rear only a single young, but that's still an incredible number in such a desolate place. And cormorants are only one of the species that breed here. Early in the southern summer, the winds blow their strongest, and the upwelling of the Benguela Current is at its most vigorous. All the seabirds time their breeding to take advantage of the seasonal boom in the fish population. Cormorants and gannets nest on offshore islands. They're safer from ground predators than they would be on the mainland. They might have some protection from predators, but escaping the heat is impossible. The seas around may be close to freezing, but on land, the African sun can be burning hot. Seabirds aren't designed to live in a desert. The Cape gannets are lucky that their white feathers reflect heat, so they turn their backs to the sun to keep cool. Unfortunately, the cormorant's black plumage absorbs sunlight, so they cool down by panting to release heat. They also release something else that surprisingly protects other birds from the sun. It's not a coating of guano that keeps the sun's rays off the jackass penguins, but the years of accumulation on the rocks that lets them excavate shady nest sites and shelter from the sun. Penguins at the edge of a desert seem a strange sight, but the jackass is found only in Africa, and it's here because of the fish in the Benguela current. Even so, the heat can still get unbearable, and a parent will briefly abandon its young to cool down. Swimming does more than keep the penguins cool. It washes the guano off their feathers. Keeping their plumage clean and groomed is vital. Their feathers insulate them from the heat of the sun as well as the cold of the sea. Many other fish hunters thrive on the edge of the desert, and once a year, instinct drives some of the larger ones onto the hot shore to start the business of reproduction. South African fur seals. More than 500,000 breed along the edge of the Namib, and this is never a quiet affair. The large bulls are the first to come ashore. If they are to attract females, they must successfully establish territories along the edge of the surf. The best territories lie close to the water, where it's easier to keep cool. This is prime real estate, aggressively protected from other males hunting for a better location. Young males are no match for the heavier, mature bulls. They're forced to the edge of the colony. It will be a tough time until mating is over. Even for older males, hanging onto territory is a constant struggle. It's zero tolerance for all male intruders and newcomers. If a bull can't command a prime patch of beach, then he won't be fathering the next generation. When female fur seals eventually come ashore, they don't pick a mate, they select the coolest places. Within hours of arriving, they give birth to pups that were conceived here last year. The bulls won't rear the young, and there is no evolutionary advantage in doing so. They will almost certainly be the offspring of another male. The births are synchronized, hundreds of thousands in just a few weeks. As soon as it's born, pup and mother exchange calls. The mother will soon leave the pup to fish, and if they are to find each other again, they must recognize each other's call. Smell is vital too, and reinforces their picture of each other. On such a crowded, noisy beach, the first few days of life are critical. Losing touch with their mother would be fatal. Dark pups absorb the sun's rays and are prone to overheating. The only shade on the beach is cast by their mothers. About 6 days after giving birth, the females are ready to mate, and so are the males. This is what the bulls have been waiting for. The payoff for their struggle to control a good stretch of beach. The breeding season lasts less than 6 weeks, but in that time, a male can mate with as many as 70 females. By the end of the season, their fighting and mating will leave the bulls exhausted. Bull fur seals can weigh 8 times as much as their partners, and females have sometimes been smothered when bulls fall asleep in the act. The drive to reproduce must be very strong. Wind is responsible for so much that is unique about Namib. It triggers the cold current that makes the shore so rich in life. And year by year, it builds the majestic sand dunes. Wind constantly shapes and drives the dunes up the coast to the north. The sands are always on the move, leaving no foothold for animal or plant, no shelter from the midday sun or the nighttime chill. Temperature control is an essential for survival in the desert. There are no constants here. Desert dawns are cold, so the lizard presses its body against the sand to absorb whatever heat is left. But all too soon, the sand heats up to as much as 65 degrees Celsius. How does it stop its feet getting fried? Standing up lifts its body off the sand. Then it raises each foot in turn to save it from being burned. Long legs help the desert cricket. Less than 2 centimeters up can be 17 degrees cooler. The long-legged beetle keeps even cooler by running, creating its own wind. Dune grasses are rare oases. Their footholds are landmarks and focal points for any wildlife that can make use of them. Landmarks are a problem for long-legged dune ants. There are just too few of them, so navigation is difficult. Most ants lay scent trails, but trails would be blown away out here. Dune ants navigate by the angle of the sun. The ants build their nests under the grass. It gives shade from the sun and shelter from the wind. And food. The grass is infested with scale insects. The ants milk them for their sweet secretions of honeydew. As the sun climbs higher, the sand grows unbearably hot. Cricket and beetle must seek out shelter. Not surprisingly, vegetation is rare in the desert, so the ants defend their grass against intruders. The cricket clambers upwards, away from the hot sand. It's cooler up in the breeze. And it's cooler just a few centimeters under the sand. It's also out of the way of the ants. It's only with adaptations like these that life can survive in the extremes of the Namib desert. It is unforgiving, and its name in the local language means a place where there is nothing. But where did this vast desert come from? How did so much sand arrive in one place to be blown into dunes 300 meters high? The sand wasn't created here. It is an immigrant from the east. In the green center of southern Africa, the Drakensberg Mountains rise to more than 3,400 meters. They stand as a barrier to moisture-bearing winds from the Indian Ocean, forcing them upwards to condense as cloud and rain. Surprisingly, it's these lush, well-watered highlands that are the birthplace of the Namib's dry dunes. From a swamp high in the mountains, the Orange River carves a turbulent passage 2,000 kilometers west to the Atlantic. When the river rises in flood, it strips the land bare as millions of liters of water deluge the granite mountains. The relentless power of the water is awesome. Over countless years, the Orange River has carved deep fissures into the landscape, pounding ton upon ton of granite, breaking it down into tiny grains and carrying it away. When the river reaches the Atlantic, it releases its cargo, as it has done for millennia. Here, the sand is swept north on the Benguela Current, then blown inland to build the shifting dunes of Namib. Between wind and water, these grains can travel over 2,000 kilometers. Like water eroding the granite mountains, the winds sculpt and shape the dunes, slowly pushing them northward, meter by meter, grain by grain. The wind will die only at sunset, when the desert starts to cool. The night is a different world and brings new challenges for survival. Animals that would shrivel in the heat of the day emerge to hunt or be hunted. Creatures like the scorpion, sun spider, and gecko, who have spent the day hidden in cool burrows beneath the sand, now begin their nightly business of scraping a living in Namib. Again, adaptation is the key to success. For its size, the gruesome sun spider boasts some of the largest jaws in the animal kingdom. Adaptation may result in the loss of one sense for excellence in another. A specialized predator is on patrol under the sand. Grant's golden mole. A tiny blind hunter with hidden ears, sensitized to vibrations from prey like termites. By plunging its head in the sand, the mole can detect termite colonies many meters away, which is quite a distance for a mammal the size of a man's thumb. The golden mole can cover 5 kilometers in a night in search of food. Termites are a favored prey, but the golden mole also hunts beetles and even small lizards. Hunting in the night is at the opposite extreme of hunting in the day. After dark, temperatures can drop almost to zero, so the mole must keep eating to stay warm. Its sense of smell is good, but even at close range, detecting movement is its main way of finding prey. Fossils of golden moles date back 14 million years, so its adaptation to desert life seems to be a success. Before dawn, the mole will bury itself deep underground, and as the cold sand drains the heat from its body, it will enter a state similar to hibernation, until the next night. In the chill light of dawn, a thick fog drifts in from the sea. These coastal fogs form when warm, moist air from the Atlantic blows across the cold Benguela current. The fogs regularly travel up to 50 kilometers inland, bringing a precious commodity to the desert. Moisture from the fog condenses on the desert grass, even on the bodies of the animals. For many, this is the only chance of a regular drink. Some beetles have adapted their behavior in an astonishing way to capture moisture. On cold, misty mornings, it climbs right to the very crest of the dune. There, it turns to face the wind and raises its body to meet the incoming fog. Moisture condenses on its back and trickles down to its mouth. The miracle of water in the desert is short-lived. As the rising sun warms the desert, the fog evaporates, burning back to the coast. Cold-blooded creatures need to raise their body heat in the morning sun before they can function fully. A chameleon basks broadside to the sunrise. It darkens its body to absorb more heat. When one side is done, it turns to heat the other. Cold-blooded animals rely on the sun's heat to raise their body temperature, but they don't want to raise it too far. For the sidewinder, the desert heat is a mixed blessing. Dunes of hot desert sand are loose and hard to travel across. The sidewinder copes with the problem by adopting this unique style of movement, where only two short sections of its body are in contact with the sand at any one time. Using its muscles, to lever itself across. By raising its body off the surface, it also reduces contact with the hot sand. As snakes go, sidewinders are small, less than 30 centimeters long. They hunt by ambushing their prey. Sooner or later, something edible will visit this tiny oasis. Sidewinders don't need to feed every day, which is just as well, as food and water are always scarce in the Namib desert. Before long, the sun and wind have evaporated any remnants of the morning fog. The desert is a shimmering cauldron of heat. For larger creatures, like ostrich and hemsbok, the fogs can never bring enough moisture. If they are to survive, they must find surface water. The few seasonal rivers that attempt to flow west from the interior are lost in the sand long before reaching the ocean. But surprisingly, there is water here, if you know where to look. Even though sand grouse are adapted to desert life and can live on dry seeds, they still have to drink every day. Morning and evening, they fly as much as 60 kilometers in search of water. The Namib isn't all sand. There are gravel plains and dry riverbeds. Beneath these beds lie underground reserves of water, and in a few places, it reaches the surface. These occasional oases give some plants and animals a chance at survival in an arid wilderness. Sooner or later, anything that can fly or walk comes to drink. The sand grouse are here to do more than quench their own thirst. They will quickly give way to larger creatures, but before they leave, the males do something peculiar. The males, and only the males, bob up and down in the water, but they're not having a bath. Then the sand grouse fly off deeper into the desert. But where are they going? And what were the males doing? Warthogs must drink every day, so they cannot travel far from the dry riverbeds and their waterholes. But hemsbok are better suited to life in the desert. They can go without water for days, gleaning enough moisture from their diet, and they have a remarkable adaptation that keeps them from overheating. Hemsbok can tolerate temperatures that would kill other animals. Their blood can rise to 45 degrees in the sun, but a network of vessels in their nose cools it before it reaches the brain. The sand grouse are near the end of their journey. But what was that mysterious bobbing in the water for? Like their parents, sand grouse chicks must drink every day. But they can't fly to the waterhole, and it's too far to walk. So their father brings water to them. No other bird can carry water like this. The absorbent breast feathers are unique. Vultures are the last to arrive at the waterhole in the morning. They depend on thermals to soar and must wait until the desert warms before flying any distance. But once the temperature is up, they gather from kilometers around. There is an existence to be had here if the harsh environment can be endured. Those animals that can adapt claim a niche that few others can compete for. True desert animals are well equipped to deal with the heat of the day. But what about the fur seals of the burning shore? Fur and blubber may be perfect insulation for the freezing waters of the Benguela, but they're a problem when it comes to the heat of the African sun. The seals hold their flippers up in the breeze to maximize loss of heat, and they lie as close as they can to the surf, within reach of the cooling spray. For those that can't win a place in the splash zone, the alternative is to rest high up on the beach, as high as possible, for the benefit of any cold wind from the sea. But this is very much second best. Sooner or later, the searing heat becomes intolerable, and they must return to the water. Small pups are more likely to overheat. Their mothers must nurse them for the first week, so when they go for a swim, they take their pups with them and park them in the cooling spray. The journey may look like one hell of a ride, but it's better than being left to bake in the sun. Pups don't start swimming until they're 2 months old, so their mothers must leave them when they go to feed in the sea. They're left to sweat it out on the beach. Finally, an escape from the desert heat for the mother seals. Seals are in their element. On land, they're awkward and ungainly, and wherever there are young, vulnerable offspring, there are predators. The desert that backs the shore gives some protection, but the coast has its hunters, on the lookout for the weak and defenseless. A jackal. The mothers won't come back until they have fed. The youngsters must fend for themselves. Seals have been breeding here for thousands of years. In the distant past, this was an island, but over the centuries, sand swept north by the Benguela current joined it to the mainland. So now, the jackals have the run of the colony. The jackal gives a pup an exploratory nip to see how strong it is. A solitary jackal prefers the weak or sick. A more serious threat arrives, a brown hyena. The hyena is much larger than the jackal and will take healthy pups. Seals can see well underwater, but on land they're very short-sighted. If something keeps still, they will approach it. Perhaps there's safety in numbers, and jackals are more scavengers than killers. A jackal's best chance for a taste of seal meat is to shadow a prowling hyena. For most of the year, hyenas scavenge a meager living in the desert, but for just a few weeks, when the seals are breeding, the supply of food seems almost unlimited. The hyena scouts for the best opportunity. It's looking for a sleeping or unattended pup. A mother seal could drive the hyena off. A pup on its own stands no chance. For the colony, death is a fact of life. A fifth of pups won't survive their first month, many dying from heat stress. With so many pups around, the hyena will eat only the best parts of each kill, leaving the jackals to squabble over what's left. Though hyenas kill hundreds of pups each year, hundreds of thousands survive. For the fur seals, like many other animals here, the balance between life and death is tilted in the right direction. Namib is a harsh land, and survival here is all about balance. Living on a knife edge between the opposites and extremes of heat and cold, wind and water, sea and desert shore. For those who can adapt and find a niche, it's a balance worth striving for.